The Seattle Storm are sending Jewell Loyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a blockbuster three-team trade that moves Kelsey Plum to the LA Sparks. That's according to ESPN. As part of the deal, Seattle receives the second pick in this year's WNBA draft from LA in exchange for the Storm's number 9 pick, while the Aces also receive the 13th pick, a second-round selection from the Sparks.
What happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Just ask Kelsey Plum. The Star Guard is leaving the neon lights of Sin City for the star-studded streets of Los Angeles. At least now she won't have to deal with A'ja Wilson's ego, right? In a shocking turn of events, Plum, a 3-time All-Star and 2-time champion, has been traded to the LA Sparks in a blockbuster 3-team deal. Jewell Loyd, a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ with Seattle, joins the Aces, while the Storm picks up the Sparks' coveted number 2 draft pick. Are we witnessing the fall of the Las Vegas Aces empire? And who's really to blame for this unraveling?
Loyd is a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ with Seattle, while Plum is a 3-time All-Star with 2 titles of her own out in Las Vegas.
Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone, minding your own business, when suddenly, ma'am, the news hits you like a fast break. Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter extraordinaire, is leaving the Las Vegas Aces. But wait, it gets even crazier. She's been traded to the LA Sparks in a blockbuster 3-team deal that has the entire WNBA buzzing.
With Loyd to Vegas, Plum to LA, just how does this maybe impact the landscape of the Western Conference? And I kind of want to also throw in the league as a whole, getting some of these big pieces now in new places.
Let's break this down because this isn't just any old trade. This is the kind of move that shakes the entire league. Kelsey Plum to the Sparks, Jewell Loyd to the Aces, and the Sparks' prize number 2 draft pick headed to the Seattle Storm. It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs, with superstars as the players.
Well, we have been hearing for a little while the reporting of Annie Costabile at the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as Roberta Rodriguez with Beta Basket. We've been hearing that Jewell Loyd, especially after the investigation with the Seattle Storm, was likely on the move. And then, of course, Kelsey Plum was cored by the Aces, though she was considered, and still is technically considered, one of the top draws in free agency as an unrestricted free agent.
Or you might be scratching your head, wondering why the Aces would let go of a talent like Kelsey Plum. That's the million-dollar question everyone's asking. And remember those whispers about tension between Plum and A'ja Wilson? Well, maybe there was more fire than smoke after all.
When you have 2 names like that, 2 Olympians, just won gold in Paris, they are going to, as you said, draw a lot of assets. And when you see a 3-team trade, obviously this was about as many teams as possible, but especially the Seattle Storm and the Las Vegas Aces being able to get value.
But here's where things get really interesting. Plum isn't just looking for a quick change of scenery. Reports suggest she's eyeing a long-term future with the Sparks, possibly beyond the 2025 season. This isn't just a trade, it's a bold new chapter in her career.
Age reminds me a lot of me. Like, you say you're not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top, and it reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
The Aces aren't just swapping one star for another. By bringing in Jewell Loyd, they're trying to add the final piece to their championship puzzle. But is it the right piece? That's the question everyone's asking. Loyd is joining a team that's been absolutely dominant, winning back-to-back championships in 2022 and 2023. The real challenge now: will her style mesh with A'ja Wilson and the rest of the Aces' star-studded lineup?
I think what we have seen in the WNBA, especially with the last collective bargaining agreement that the league is still under, though negotiating right now, we've seen a lot more player autonomy and movement, and that makes things really exciting.
Not everyone's convinced about the Aces' decision. Sure, Plum and Loyd both bring star power, but some analysts are raising eyebrows at their similar skill sets. And let's not ignore the whispers about Loyd's recent shooting struggles. Is this a case of the Aces being overly confident in their ability to make any player fit their system?
Want to go back to the Aces just very briefly, because you talked about how they were trying to get that three-peat, but instead now maybe seeking to compete for their 3rd championship in the last 4 years, and certainly looking to build that core around A'ja Wilson. But just what does Jewell Loyd kind of add to now what the Aces are trying to build here?
Meanwhile, let's talk about the Sparks. They're not just gaining a disgruntled star, they're getting a highly motivated one. Plum is looking for a fresh start, and Los Angeles might just be the perfect place for her to reignite her career. Could this be the move that finally puts the Sparks back in playoff contention after a disappointing season?
Miller's skill set in a lot of ways to Kelsey Plum. I think of players that can play that number 2 guard in particular, maybe have the ball in their hands a time or two. But with Jewell Loyd, her execution from the corner is lethal. And with Jewell Loyd, we saw that even at the Olympics, there was some controversy there with how she was utilized, or in fact, how she was not utilized by head coach Cheryl Reeve for Team USA. And then again, there were a few things going on with Seattle, and we saw a little bit of her productivity and specifically her efficiency dip.
Now let's dive into the ripple effects of this trade. You thought this was just about Plum, Loyd, and a draft pick. Think again. This move is reshaping the entire WNBA landscape, sending shockwaves across the league.
A lot of people thought they could be in contention to over and usurp the Houston Comets for that 4-peat. Of course, that didn't come to pass. The New York Liberty are champions, let's not forget. But I think it's just a little bit of a different culture change. And I think with that, it means that Kelsey Plum, if she does go to LA, will be utilized for some of her experience and her leadership.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The Sparks didn't just gain a star, they gave up their golden ticket. That number 2 draft pick could have been their shot at a generational talent like Olivia Miles or Paige Bueckers. Players like that can transform a franchise overnight. Instead, the Sparks are betting on the here and now, rolling the dice on Plum's star power.
She will be paired alongside last year's number 2 overall pick, Cameron Brink, who was off to a fantastic rookie year before that season-ending injury. I mean, that's a 3-time All-Star. We talk about 2 titles, but just looking at her joining that, what kind of expertise, what kind of knowledge, what can that really do for, I don't want to use this, but what kind of spark can that be for the Sparks out there in LA? I had to use it.
What about the Aces? On paper, swapping Plum for Loyd looks like a fair trade. But dig deeper and the cracks start to show. Loyd's coming off a season where her shot wasn't falling, just 36% compared to Plum's 43%. That's not a small drop, it's a canyon-sized gap.
I think you're right. With Cameron Brink coming back, hopefully very healthy from injury, as you mentioned, she was a dynamic force for that LA team. I think it's the overall organization and some of the things, again, that this is a legacy franchise. The Los Angeles Sparks played in the first ever WNBA basketball game. And again, we've seen other teams just build a little bit more infrastructure around their players.
And it doesn't stop there. The Aces might have just messed with their secret sauce. Plum wasn't just a scorer. She was a playmaker who elevated everyone around her. Now they've got a pure scorer in Loyd, but who's going to set up those easy buckets? The Aces' offensive chemistry could be in for a rough ride, especially with Wilson demanding the ball so much. Meanwhile, the Seattle Storm might be the real winners here. They've landed the number 2 pick and are grinning like they just hit the jackpot. This could be the start of a whole new era in Seattle. Imagine Paige Bueckers in a Storm jersey. That's the kind of player you build a franchise around. Here's a refined rewrite of intros 13 to 18, keeping the flow dynamic and compelling while maintaining clarity.
Heard a time or two the phrase hybrid rebuilds come into play. They have a new coach. They are going to have now, as has been reported, a new player in Kelsey Plum. So I think the leadership from Plum, and I think maybe the reset for Kelsey Plum, being in a new environment, maybe taking on a different role, because she's coming from the Las Vegas Aces.
This trade isn't just reshaping 3 teams, it's shifting the entire balance of power in the WNBA. The Sparks are emerging as dark horse contenders, the Storm are setting themselves up for the future, and the Aces, well, they might have just opened the door for the rest of the league. Don't forget about other heavyweights like the Indiana Fever, New York Liberty, and Minnesota Lynx, all lurking in the wings. The 2025 season just got a whole lot more exciting. But here's the kicker. The real losers in all of this might be the Aces and their so-called superstar, A'ja Wilson. Losing Kelsey Plum, arguably their most efficient and versatile player, is a huge blow. Plum wasn't just the engine of their offense, she made everything run smoothly. Without her, Wilson's going to have to work a lot harder for those easy buckets.
She was on the Olympic team, of course, has been with the Aces for some years. She just had her jersey retired by her alma mater in Washington. So there's a lot of great things. And I do want to say, I was in Paris for the Summer Olympics, and we got to speak to Kelsey Plum. She had a few things off the court going on, and she talked about just leaning into her faith and being so blessed, and just kind of almost laughing at all of the things that were going on outside of basketball.
Here's a wild thought. What if this is just the beginning of the Aces' downfall? Key players are already jumping ship. Alicia Clark and Tiffany Hayes are free agents, and Kate Martin's packed her bags for San Francisco. What looked like a dynasty now feels more like a sinking ship. Remember the old saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, not when it comes to the Aces drama. This team had it all. Championships, superstars, MVPs. But now, it's like watching a high-stakes poker game where everyone is
like the Las Vegas Aces, who they have a few moving pieces and moving parts. You can't always keep a championship team together.
Let's talk about the Aces offseason, starting with their front office drama. First, GM Natalie Williams was shown the door. Months later, her seat remains empty. It's like a game of musical chairs, but the music stopped and no one sat down. The coaching staff hasn't fared much better. 2 top assistants have left for bigger opportunities. Natalie Nakais joined the shiny new Golden State Valkyries, which makes sense, but Tyler Marsh? He traded the glitz of Vegas for the chaos of the Chicago sky. Something's not adding up in Sin City.
I wonder, I don't know for sure, but I wonder if also this is maybe just a really important, even personal reset for Kelsey Plum. And again, there have been reports that the same could be in play here for Jewel Lloyd.
Yeah, that puts things certainly in a different perspective, at least for her in her career.
And then there's the cherry on top of this disaster Sunday. Kelsey Plum is gone. Are you seeing the pattern? Because Becky Hammon certainly is, and she's not happy. Hammon has been dropping truth bombs, making it clear she's frustrated. Last season's performance, let's just say it was as unpredictable as a roulette wheel. In a critical Game 4 loss to New York, Plum, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray combined for just 28 points. And Aja Wilson, she wasn't thrilled, to say the least.
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't. And I'm sad about that because I really like that group. They were a pain in my ass, but I was a pain in their ass too.
But wait, it gets worse. Remember the Derica Hamby situation. That debacle cost the Aces their 2025 first-round pick. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. And then there's Aja Wilson, once seen as the unstoppable superstar of this franchise. Sure, she had a historic season, becoming the first of the NBA player to score 1,000 points in a single season, and setting a record with a 26.9 points per game average. But here's the twist. While Wilson was breaking records, the Aces were falling apart at the seams.
What is going on in their locker room? Like, this Aces team is falling apart. This is not a coach that I would want to play for.
Picture this. It's the playoffs, tensions are sky high, and Becky Hammon calls a timeout. Frustrated with her team's performance, she lays it all out. I called a timeout because I was frustrated with us. It wasn't the refs. It wasn't the Liberty. It was about how we were playing. We know we're better than that. Ouch. That's got to sting, especially for Wilson, who's supposed to be the leader. But Hammon didn't stop there. She's been openly critical, accusing some players of wanting to be celebrities more than basketball players. Wonder who she's talking about, and here's the kicker. It's not going to be the same group next year, Hammon said. It just won't. That's not exactly a vote of confidence. While the Aces are crumbling like a house of cards, another team is quietly building a fortress. The Indiana Fever, long considered underdogs, are making big moves. What if I told you they're assembling a dream team that could change the face of the WNBA? Let's talk about the movie the Indiana Fever are making. Kelly Krauskopf is back as team president. She's not just any executive. She's the architect who once built the Fever into a powerhouse, and now she's back to do it again. But that's not all. They've brought in Amber Cox as general manager, a league insider with a sharp eye for talent. And here's the cherry on top. Stephanie White is returning as head coach. White knows this team inside and out, and she's proven she has what it takes to lead them to glory. And then there's their crown jewel, Caitlin Clark. You've heard the name. The basketball phenom who shattered 62 records in her rookie WNBA season. That's not just talent, it's legendary. This new Fever front office isn't just making moves for next season, they're building a dynasty. They're not just assembling a team, they're creating an entire culture. It all starts with generational talent like Caitlin Clark, paired with rising stars like Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull. It's like watching a master chess player set up the board for checkmate. While the world has been fixated on the Aces drama, the Fever have been quietly positioning themselves to become the next big thing in the WNBA. They're not planning to compete, they're planning to dominate. And with Clark leading the charge, supported by a top-tier front office and coaching staff, they might just pull it off.
The whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that and being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted.
The WNBA landscape is shifting faster than a killer crossover. We're witnessing the fall of an empire and the rise of new contenders. The Aces dynasty. It's looking shakier than a rookie at the free throw line. Meanwhile, the draft is on the horizon, and it's loaded with game-changers like Paige Buchers and Olivia Miles. And let's not forget the Seattle Storm. They're sitting on that coveted number 2 pick, ready to make a splash. So, what's next? Who's going to dominate in 2025? It's anyone's guess, but one thing's for sure, this season is shaping up to be wilder than a buzzer beater in overtime. Are you ready for the show? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Hit the video on your screen and we'll see you in the next one.